Here's a paradox that might frustrate you. The more you understand about peace, the further you drift from actually feeling it. We live in an age of infinite wisdom. Podcasts, books, meditation guides, yet anxiety keeps climbing. You've read about letting go, but the grip only tightens. What if the very act of seeking more knowledge is the obstacle itself? After this, you'll see why one word from Buddha carries more transformative power than 1,000 explanations, and how stopping, truly stopping, might be the only move you haven't tried yet. Let's find out what he actually meant. As the night deepened, the moon hung in the sky, shining with unusual clarity. On the outskirts of a small town in ancient India, where the trees swayed gently in the breeze and only the sound of insects filled the air, a quiet gathering had formed. A group of students sat in a circle around their teacher. No one spoke. Time seemed to simply rest there, still and unhurried. The air was cool and clear, carrying the faint scent of grass. Moonlight fell to the ground in soft pools of shadow, gentle but unmistakably present. That night, one young student happened to look up at the sky, and something stirred in his chest, not quite beauty, not quite longing, something that had no name yet. He sat with the feeling for a moment, unable to put it into words, and then quietly turned toward his teacher. This is a story from 2,500 years ago, of the Buddha and the students who walked beside him. The fire between them had burned down to embers, a few threads of smoke rising and dissolving before they could take any shape. The teacher's eyes were already closed, and yet somehow, the young student felt certain. The student's name was Chundaka, a young man known for his diligence and devotion. He never missed a day of reading the scriptures. He wrote down his teacher's words, letter by letter, as though his life depended on it. He had been studying at the Buddha's side for 3 years. He had gathered a great deal of knowledge. He could recite entire passages from memory. If someone asked him about the nature of suffering or the meaning of the path, he could answer fluently, without hesitation. And yet, there was something hollow at his center, a quiet absence that wouldn't go away. He knew the words, but somehow the thing the words were pointing at felt just out of reach. That gap, that frustrating distance between knowing and truly understanding, had been smoldering inside him for a long time. One evening, as the students sat together in a circle, the Buddha slowly raised his voice. "Look up," he said. "Look at the sky." They all lifted their faces. A full moon hung there, calm and luminous. The Buddha raised his right hand, extended one finger, and pointed toward it. "Do you see this finger?" he asked. "Yes," the students answered. "And do you see what this finger is pointing at?" "We see the moon." The Buddha paused. Then quietly he said, "Good, but be careful. Do not stare at the finger." Chundaka felt something strike him in the chest the moment he heard those words. He didn't quite understand them yet, but they landed somewhere deep. Before he could stop himself, he asked, "Teacher, what do you mean? What is wrong with looking at the finger?" The Buddha smiled, gently and without hurry. He looked at Chundaka with warm, unhurried eyes. "Chundaka, in 3 years you have learned many words. What suffering is, what clinging is, what the path is. You know these things well. That is something to be grateful for." Chundaka felt a small wave of relief, but the Buddha continued. "And yet, in your eagerness to memorize the words, have you forgotten to feel what those words are pointing toward, directly without language?" Chundaka went quiet. "You know the word suffering, but in this moment right now, have you ever simply sat with your own suffering without trying to explain it, without a single word, just looked at it?" Chundaka was still for a long moment, then slowly he shook his head. "No, I haven't." "That is it," the Buddha said. "Do not look at the finger. Look at the moon the finger is pointing toward. Words are the finger. Truth is the moon. Words can help you move toward truth, but the words themselves are not the truth. Only when you release the words does the moon come into view." That night, Chundaka set down his scriptures. Instead, he simply looked at the moon, without words, without labeling what he saw, and something inside him, quiet and unhurried, began to shift. Pause. The spirit of this exchange lives on in the Dhammapada, one of the oldest collections of the Buddha's teachings. Its words are stripped down to almost nothing. Do no evil, do good, purify the mind. Short, spare, almost startling in their simplicity. Perhaps that was the point. By saying less, the words leave more room for the reader to step toward the real thing. And maybe that is why, when people come back to those lines again and again across a lifetime, they find something different each time. Not because the words have changed, but because they themselves have. Chundaka too returned to the same scriptures he had once memorized, but now he read them the way you might look at a friend's face, not to catalog the features, but simply to be present with what was there. The finger pointing at the moon. This image carries one of the most important teachings in all of Buddhism. The Dhammapada, a collection of the Buddha's words written in the Pali language, is sometimes translated as the path of truth or the words of the Dharma. Each verse is short, pared back, almost bare. Read it once, and it's easy to feel, I understand. But what the Buddha was reaching toward lies on the far side of that feeling. Here's a question worth sitting with. Is understanding something through words the same as experiencing it directly? The answer is no. Think about this. If someone describes the scent of plum blossoms, sweet, faint, carrying a thread of something like melancholy, does reading those words mean you know the fragrance? There's a world of difference between the person who has read that description and the person who once stood beneath a plum tree in early spring and simply breathed. Words are signposts. They point toward an experience. They are not the experience itself. The Buddha was not dismissing words. He chose his words with great care and left us the Dhammapada as evidence of how much words can matter. But he was also saying this: these words are a doorway meant to be walked through. Do not confuse knowing the door with entering the room. There's a misunderstanding worth naming here. Some people hear this teaching and conclude, if words can't capture truth, then words are useless. Why say anything at all? But that too misses the point. The Buddha spoke his entire life. He never stopped using words. A signpost has real value. It points you toward where you need to go. The problem is only when you stand at the signpost, stare at it, and call that arriving. Take the word impermanence, the teaching that everything changes, without exception. Many people know this word, but there is a difference between knowing it and having it land in your body. The moment you lose someone you deeply loved, the morning you find out the life you built has crumbled overnight. In that moment, impermanence stops being a concept. It becomes something you can feel in your bones. That is direct experience. What you know intellectually and what you understand from the inside, these are not the same country. The Buddha offered us the finger, the pointing, to help us find the moon. But the moon is only seen when we lift our eyes. Words are the finger pointing at the moon. The finger matters. But the moment we mistake the finger for the moon, the moment we say I know when we only mean I've read, we may have wandered away from the very thing we were looking for. This is perhaps why the Buddha so often taught in silence, or answered a question not with explanation, but with a gesture, lifting a single flower, pouring tea until it overflowed the cup. He knew that some truths, pressed too hard into language, go flat, the way a living thing pressed between the pages of a book becomes dry and still. The teaching was never meant to be kept there. This teaching touches something in the middle of ordinary life, in places we might not expect. Let's look at a few. At work. Maybe you know someone like this, or maybe you've been this person yourself. Someone who speaks fluently about ideas, theory, best practices. In meetings they use precise language, they have the right frameworks. But when it comes to actually handling a moment, a difficult conversation, a sudden problem, a person in distress, something doesn't translate. There's a gap between what they know and what they do. This isn't a criticism, it's a deeply human pattern. We know that communication is important, but when a colleague is struggling, are we actually looking at them, feeling what they're carrying, or are we filing their situation under a category we already understand and moving on? Knowing the concept and meeting the moment directly are two entirely different things. At work, seeing the moon might mean setting down your interpretation for just a moment and letting what's actually in front of you land. In relationships, we do this with people too. We decide someone is difficult or unmotivated or selfish, and we stop seeing them. The label becomes what we look at. The actual person, the moon, disappears behind the word. One person shared this. They had a manager they'd quietly written off as cold and hard to reach. Then one evening, working late, they ended up alone together. Not performing, not presenting. Just two people in a room. And for the first time, they listened, really listened, without any label in the way. Something they hadn't expected came through. Oh, they thought, there's more to this person than the word I gave them. That's what it means to look past the finger, to put down the label and let the person actually come into focus. With yourself, this might be the hardest one. We build a story about who we are, and we tell it to ourselves constantly. I'm the kind of person who can't handle change. I've always been anxious. I'm just not someone people warm up to. These are words we've collected, and we've lived inside them so long they feel like facts. But the Dhammapada says the mind leads all things. The words we use about ourselves do shape us. And yet those words are not us. They're the finger. We are the moon. You might carry the word coward. And then one day, without planning it, you do something brave for someone else in a moment that caught you off guard. And the story cracks. Something truer appears. What would it feel like to set down your self-description for just a moment? To ask not what kind of person am I, but simply, what am I feeling right now in this moment? That shift, however small, is what it means to look directly at the moon. Not a transformation, not an insight that rewrites everything, just a brief clearing. The way fog sometimes lifts over water for a few seconds, and you see the surface exactly as it is. That's enough. That moment of direct seeing is the practice itself. So how do we actually live this teaching? Here are 2 simple things you can try today, if you'd like. The first, 1 minute without words. Tonight before you sleep, try this. Just 1 minute. Close your eyes. Let whatever thoughts or words arise simply float by. Don't push them away. Don't follow them. Then gently bring your attention to your breath. The sensation of air coming in, your chest or belly rising slowly, the breath leaving again. Don't label it. Don't say this is relaxing or I'm doing it right. Just feel. When words drift in, and they will, notice them. Oh, there's a word. And return to the breath. That's all. This practice connects to something the Buddhist students did every day, a form of breathing awareness called anapanasati in the old Pali language. But you don't need to know the name. The essence is simple. For 1 minute, try to feel without narrating. Many people find that after a week of this, something subtle starts to shift. The mind gets a little quieter. Words lose a little of their grip. Not because you've pushed them out, but because you've found something underneath them. 1 minute. That's enough to begin. The second, listen without explaining. The next time you're in a conversation, try this. Let the other person's words reach you without immediately running them through your interpretation. Set aside, this means they're feeling X, or this is probably because of Y. Just receive. Their voice, their face, whatever is present in them right now. You don't even need to set aside the thought, I should listen well. Set that aside too. Just be there. This is what it means to see the moon directly, without the lens of language between you and the person in front of you. And something changes, both in what they feel from you and in what you're able to receive from them. Small practices, ordinary moments, but this is where the moon becomes visible. These 2 practices won't feel dramatic. You may sit quietly for 1 minute and think, nothing happened. You may listen to a friend and notice your mind was already composing a response by the 3rd sentence. That's fine. That noticing is the practice. A monk once told me he spent 20 years learning to hear a bell, really hear it, before the sound stopped being a word. Before we close, I want to leave you with one question. Think of something you say you know, really know. Your love for someone close to you, a dream you carry, something you believe matters deeply. You can describe it, you have words for it, but when you take the words away, do you feel it? In your body, in this moment, without any explanation at all. Pause. There's no pressure to answer right now. Just carry the question with you, quietly, the way you'd carry something fragile. A monk once told me he spent 40 years studying the sutras, and then one morning, washing his bowl, he realized he had never once felt the water. That bowl, that water, that ordinary morning, it was all there waiting the whole time. The finger can only point. What it points toward we explored in a previous teaching on emptiness, the space where concepts finally fall away. You'll find that episode linked in the description below. Today we traveled together through the teaching of the finger pointing at the moon. Words are remarkable things. They connect us to each other. They carry wisdom across centuries. The Buddha himself chose his words with extraordinary care and gave us the Dhammapada so that those words could reach us across 2,500 years. Words have real power, real beauty, but when we lean on them too heavily, something quietly drifts. Knowing about life and actually living it start to pull apart. We collect more and more understanding and somehow feel further from what we were looking for. The answer isn't to abandon words. It's to use them the way they were meant, as a finger, pointing towards something just beyond themselves. And then, gently, to lift your eyes. If there's a moon out tonight, I hope you'll look up at it. Not to name it, not to think about what it means, just that first fraction of a second, before the word moon arrives, when it's simply there, and you're simply here. In that moment, something the Buddha pointed toward 2,500 years ago might be quietly present. You don't need to be afraid of learning. You don't need to be ashamed of the knowledge you've gathered. Just let it be a path, not a destination. Let the words lead you toward the moon, and then look up. Thank you for being here today. If something landed for you, if even a small part of this found its way past the words, then that's already more than enough. Take good care of yourself tonight. A monk was once asked to describe the taste of water. He paused, then lifted his cup and drank. That pause and everything in it was the teaching. One story a day. Try it. In a week, your words will change. In a month, your eyes will change. In a year, the same world will look completely different. See you tomorrow.